right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our general membership meeting this brisk Wednesday morning. I'd like to welcome you and welcome our guest speakers. A warm welcome to our panelists, Jason Tormino, David Manning, Supervisor David Rabbit, and Janet Polly. We're grateful that they took time out of their busy schedules in the mornings. Shameless plug, Supervisor Rabbit has jury duty, so we have limited time with him this morning. So thank you guys for making time to be here. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to give a quick thank you to Don Mills from Sound Ideas Media. Thank you, Don, for being here and filming today's program. For all of us that are regular members, if we miss a meeting and we wonder how to capture the meeting in its essence and what we missed and the information, Don does really a great job with that. And by the way, shameless plug for the QR codes. You can always check out our website and become members and see all of the benefits that we have to offer by clicking that code on your phone. All right. Speaking of sponsors, we're approaching a milestone. Actually, before we do that, I want to say thank you to all of our sustaining sponsors that partner with us month after month in helping us survive as an organization and have impact in our great community. Thank you. All right, speaking of sponsors, we're approaching a milestone, you guys. We have been around for 50 years. So Thursday, November 6th at 5 p.m. at Sally Tomatoes in Rohnert Park, we're throwing a big bash. We're throwing a big party. And on your tables, you're going to find a flyer with ticket sponsorship information. And we're looking for businesses and organizations that are happy to partner with us. And we're also hoping that people start buying tickets today so we can start to understand the turnout and start making our logistics and planning happen. Big shout out to our celebration committee as well in the background that's working tirelessly to make sure the event is amazing with live music and all the things. It's going to be really a great time to celebrate the 50 years of impact we've had on the county. I do also want to say that we're going to be honoring some extraordinary people like Marlene Soyland, Ross Liscombe, Dick Dowd, Scott Kincaid, Mick Menendez, Dennis Harder, Kimberly Waite, Kathy Goodacre, and there's going to be a whole show that goes along with it that I think is going to be educational, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be a celebration of who we are as an organization and some of our cornerstone players over the years that have made it happen. So tickets are on sale. Please buy your tickets. I do want to shout out some businesses that have already sponsored. The Exchange Bank, thank you. Fidelity National Title, thank you. WSI Smart Marketing, thank you. Adobe and Associates, Samantha Paul Planning, and of course Friends of Smart to Dana and her team, thank you. If you don't see your name as a sponsor and you'd love a little love from stage and you'd like to help participate in sponsoring that event, we would really appreciate it. So buy your tickets today, reach out if you're willing to be a sponsor and looking for your name in lights, and we'd be happy to help you out. All right, and with that, I want to go ahead and pass the microphone over to Ty, our Executive Director. Thank you.
All right, morning everyone. Morning. All right, thanks for joining us for another great program this morning. We are hoping with this STEAM panel that we can get a really complex challenge explained to us plainly and make it digestible. This is a big deal, so thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing on this project. Sonoma County Alliance, we're 50 this year, and our founding project really was Warm Springs Dam, so we're rooted in water. If our water supply committee can stand up. Anyone on our water supply? Marlene, come on. Awesome. Look around. We have an incredibly active water supply committee, and they are working hard. They're paying attention. They're taking these meetings. It's secondary knowledge to them at this point. And if you are really interested in this topic, I encourage you to email Marlene and join that committee. They're doing great work. So thank you to the water supply committee. Thank you, Marlene and Dick, for chairing that. And with that, we also have an invite from from Sonoma Water. They're doing their first. It is the first water, what is it called? winter water supply forecast webinar. It's on September 29th at 11:30. So if you want to attend that and get deeper into the conversation, it's going to be a great program. It's going to have experts from the Department of Water, resources from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and it's going to have Supervisor Linda Hopkins moderating it. So be sure to check that out. October 1st, we're going to welcome SMART to our stage to talk about the mascot program. We've also got a petition out front. It's talking about getting SMART to last for 30 years plus, so go check that thing out. November 5th, we have our annual city municipal forum. This is going to have all 9 city managers, so you're not going to want to miss this one. They're going to come talk about what's happening in their cities, and it's going to be a special program, so expect it's going to run a little bit later, probably 9:30. So mark your calendars for that. And then November 6th, as Ryan pitched, we have our celebration. So please do get your tickets. Let us know you're going to come. The best way to do it is to buy a seat or a table. So the QR code on that flyer will help you do that. So if you have any problems with it, please email me, call me. I'd be happy to help. All right, and to get through this, I want to get right into self-introductions. We do have a pop-up sponsor today, so when we get to Tony, we're going to let her have a minute of the mic to tell us about what she's doing. And she's also donated something for our raffle. So if you have a business card and you are a guest, please make sure that we get it. We have gear, we have cool swag, and we'd love to give it to you. So please do give us a card if you're a guest, and we will pass this mic. So as we come around, stand up, business name, your name, and we'll keep passing it along. All right, you get to keep this off.
Good morning, Peter Martin, Santa Rosa Water.
Good morning, Jennifer Burke, Santa Rosa Water.
Tom Schwedon, TZS Consulting, and candidate for 4th District Supervisor.
Andrea Rodriguez, Sonoma Water.
Chelsea Thompson, City of Petaluma.
Danny Sheehan, Friends of Smart, and board member for Business Alliance.
PG&E, Jason Taramino.
John Leyba, PG&E Wildfire Emergency and Operations.
Ryan Kelly, your board president, and also WSI Smart Marketing.
Janet Pauley, Mendocino County Inland Water and Power Commission.
David Manning, Sonoma Water, and the Heal Russian Project Authority.
David Rabbit, all of the above.
Jim Mendoza, campaign manager for Todd Lands for 4th District Supervisor.
Good morning, I'm Todd Lands, I'm the Cloverdale Mayor, and I'm candidate for 4th District.
Good morning, Lisa Wicki Schaffner, North Coast Builders Exchange.
Good morning, Dana Ghirardelli with Sonoma County Farm Bureau.
Good morning, Sherry Granzato with Exitos, Latino, Crush, and Bob.
Awesome. Melissa Galliani with Wine Country Radio and Digital.
Good morning, Pete Leskier, Leskier Engineers and Surveyors. You turned it off. Is that not on? You wrote that.
There we go. Pete Leskier, Leskier Engineers and Surveyors.
Good morning, Sonia Bick Barwick with Generation Housing.
Art Dyke with EPS.
Ann Morkill with the Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation.
Mike Thompson with the Laguna Foundation, Russian River Confluence, and Calpine.
John Rudolph, PCD, Audio Video Integrators.
Good morning, Ken LaFranchi, Architect.
Courtney Bowser, City of Bernal Park.
Good morning, Mark Soylent Company.
Art Dexter, Leduc and Dexter and Super Service Plumbing.
Good morning, Dick Dowd, retired past president of the Alliance and current co-chair of the Water Supply Committee.
Good morning, Megan Rhodes with Santa Rosa Junior College. I connect businesses to students.
Good morning, Sean Jean, Brelgian Race Consulting Engineering.
Good morning, Steve Bertelbaugh with Friends of Smart.
Joe Gaffney, St. Vincent Paul, and a member of the Water Supply Committee.
Good morning, Jack Byrne with Navigate Inc.
Chuck Root, Double Eagle Financial, and Open for Business.
Good morning, Frank Darian, Bertolone Realty Group.
Eli Weinsveg, CTE Foundation, Sonoma County.
Hello, my name is Ryan Long with Connected Outreach and the Cotati Planning Commission.
Dan Rosacci with the Ron Martin Group at Morgan Stanley and Board President for CHOPS Team Club.
Rob Sanville, KLH Consulting, and I am a board member for this organization.
Clayton Krager, Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation.
Kevin Zuko, ZFA Structural Engineers. Andre Moran, Belgian Race Consulting Engineers, and board member, United Way of the Wine Country.
Good morning, Stuart Tippin, Sonoma Water.
Good morning, Marcela Piedra with the City of Rohnert Park.
Good morning, Tim Schramm with Adobe Associates, Civil Engineers, Land Surveyors.
Jeff Rowland, owner of B&L Glass.
Don Mills, Sound Ideas Media. Justin Hunter, Holly Construction.
Good morning, Lori Rodriguez, CPA, Dilwood Berkel and Millar, CPAs and business advisors.
Good morning, Chris Perez, owner of Core Electrical, the North Bay Black Chamber Vice President, and a representative of the 100 Black Men of Sonoma County. I brought two guests today. I have Frank McManus, the new Cardinal Newman head coach for the varsity football team. And I have brought Ngame Gray of the Grays with me. Thank you.
Good morning, Ryan Buxton on the next one staff.
Mark Nelson, Midstate Construction.
Good morning, Monica Berrigan, Office of Assemblymember Rogers.
Scott Alonso, Office of Assemblymember Rogers.
Hi, Claudia Sisumfu with Sonoma Clean Power.
Business cards of gas. You want beer? It's good beer, it's Cuvert Brewing. Get me your business card.
Pierre Rotte, Sonoma County Ag and Open Space District.
Good morning, Jeff Owen with Exchange Bank.
Mark Hale with Carlisle Macy.
Sandy Sakon with Morgan Stanley.
Ben Hampton, Sequoia Computer.
Good morning, David Brown, Adobe Associates, Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors.
Amy Carter, Sonoma County Superintendent of Schools.
Good morning, Greg Medici, Sonoma County, with Dr. Carter, Superintendent of Schools, but with Sonoma County Office of Ed.
Conrad Fernandez, Fidelity National Title.
Mark Stapp, Sonoma State and Santa Rosa City Council.
Jason Lee, Roseland School District and Alliance Board Member.
Kurt Nichols, retired, past president, and member of the Water Supply Committee.
Marlene Soyland Management.
Clay Popko, Summit State Bank.
Leith Christensen, Sonoma Clean Power.
Good morning, Matt Daly, Sonoma County Fair.
Kevin Marks, CFA Structural Engineers.
All right, so when I go back to this stage after this table, I want to see all those guest cards held up. And I'm going to do some laps.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you should go. The library's going.
Good morning. Scott Lawrence with Sonoma Clean Power.
Good morning, Miguel Andrade Marin, Golden State Lumber.
Jamie Agathan with Sonoma State Power.
What did I say? State Power?
Lauren Burgess at Sonoma County Mayors and Council Members Association.
Kyle Betancourt, ZFA Structural Engineers.
Steve Glick, Bauer Associates, and President of the Board of Sonoma County Fire District.
Morning, Aaron Smith with Adobe Associates.
Try this again. Yeah, I don't know what you guys say.
Here we go, now you can see me. 707 Promotions, and I'm Tony Spisman, and what we do is swag. So swag is promotional products. They're a really powerful part of your marketing strategy because when people see your brand, often they trust it more. If you put your logo on a water bottle and you're in front of your customers with every sip. So here are 3 smart ways to use swag. First of all, thank your customers and team with gifts they'll use. Blankets, tumblers, power banks, even branded jackets like the North Face. It shows appreciation and keeps your brand top of mind. Win over new customers, number 2, with small useful giveaways. Tote bags or mini billboards people carry everywhere. 3, look sharp at events with retractable banners, tents, tablecloths, and polos. I produced the tablecloth you saw when you walked in. So, with trade shows and holidays coming up, let 707 Promotions help you find the right swag that fits your brand and your budget, delivered on time. Thank you so much.
How exciting. All right, if you've got a business card, your guest, please hold it up so I can collect it. And while I do, I will tell you that that is our pop-up sponsorship. And the way that it works is you give us $100 and we let you talk to people to tell them what you're all about. And if you're a member, you're allotted one of those a year. Come on, guys, you got more. And you also have the opportunity to do a program sponsorship where you get to come to the mic and talk for 3 minutes. So if you're interested in that, let me know and we'll get you locked in. And with that, we will shuffle these and pull 3 winners today. That's you. Okay, we've got 3 winners. We have Claudia. There we go. All right, Claudia from Sonoma Clean Power, you are one of our winners. Miss Gray from Bridges, you are one of our winners. New Bridges, you won. Oh! And then we've got one more, Clay from Summit State Bank. So come on up, we have beer and we have swag. It's determined by speed who gets what. Beer and swag. All right, swag. There you go. Thanks for being here, guys. Right there. Don Mills.
All right, cautionary tale to the speakers. The button on these new microphones is sensitive. If you hold it just right, you're going to turn it off. So be aware where the buttons are. All right, we're going to start with our presenters. And again, we're thrilled to have such high quality people here today to give us some education on what's happening with regard to the water district and PG&E and the dam and all the stuff. So, because Supervisor Rabbit has jury duty, we are changing our format just a little bit. So we're going to actually start with Jason Tormino. Jason Tormino is the government affairs. You know, when I read these bios, when I read something that says Jason Tormino is the government affairs person, I feel like "the" should be capitalized, like all the way through. The government affairs person for Sonoma County and Lake County. His role is to work directly with the elected officials and senior staff members to ensure there's a high level of collaboration. Prior to joining PG&E, Jason spent 15 years as a real estate developer. He successfully completed 8 residential and commercial developments from land acquisition through entitlement and full construction. This end-to-end development experience has served him well in his role at PG&E because he understands that delivering a positive outcome requires principled leadership. Jason has a degree in political science and as well an MBA and speaks Spanish and French from his years of living in Europe. Jason, why don't you grace us with the stage?
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here today. Let's see. On the screen, I'm going to just do 4 slides to orient you all to this project. The PG&E has been involved in, well, let's say this, the powerhouse finished construction in 1908. This was 2 years after the San Francisco earthquake, which destroyed 80% of San Francisco. It was a really significant electrical production facility. And I am proud that we have been operating it for more than 100 years. Its time has come to an end from an electrical production standpoint, but from a water conveyance standpoint, it is very important. And I know that the founding of this organization had a lot to do with water. So it's fitting that we're here today. This map kind of orients you to the idea that there's a Lake Pillsbury, and then down the Eel River, there is a Cape Horn Dam and the Van Arsdale Reservoir, where water is pumped through to Potter Valley, where it produces electricity, and then flows on for ag and people and wildlife. I'm going to fast forward to 2019. PG&E, when we decided that we no longer could operate this from an economic standpoint, tried to find a new owner for this project. In January of 2019, we realized that we were not going to find a new owner for this project. And then in March through April of 22, we informed the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission of this, and they sought new owners of the project. I know that there was one group that came forward but didn't take it to the goal line for various reasons. FERC eventually asked us to submit a final plan and a schedule to decommission this project. And then in June, we provided an initial plan, a schedule, and FERC found this schedule acceptable. So in late 23, the two basin partners provided a proposal to PG&E for a new diversion facility located at Cape Horn Dam. And I think I'll pause here for a moment. PG&E and all utilities are in the business of serving people. And our relationship with Sonoma Water, the two basin partners, and all of the groups that have collaborated and worked very hard for almost a decade is reflective of our position as an organization that exists to serve the people in our area. In November of 23, PG&E released the initial draft study surrender application and conceptual decommissioning plan for public comment. And then the fall of 24, just recently, PG&E and the two basin partners identified a regulatory pathway allowing for construction impacts to the Eel and Russian rivers. David's going to talk more about that, but what that means is we have to take out a bunch of facilities at Cape Horn Dam and the Van Arsdale area. The two basin partners will need to construct, and that we need to be coordinated so that we do it in the best way possible, the cheapest way possible, and so that water continues to flow into the East Branch of the Russian River, but also that the Eel side of the river is protected and flows for the benefit of both people and wildlife. The surrender licensing process that we have gone through is limited in scope in the sense that it follows the scope that we need to go through for our process, but does not necessarily take into consideration all of the other entities and all of the work that they will have to do. So unlike in many of the development proposals that you all are familiar with from a city or county standpoint, this is a narrower focus than we would usually see, because we are essentially dealing with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission rather than a normal board, city council, or board of supervisors. I am going to skip some of this stuff because it's a little bit technical, but I do want to touch on the last bullet here, that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission cannot deny a surrender because they can't require an entity to continue to own and operate a project. That's our regulation as PG&E, as a utility. And so what that really means is once we've told them this is no longer in our best interest to have this license, they're required to go through a process and tell us how we can get out of it. However, we're not leaving without making sure that everything is in good stead, which is why we're collaborating with Sonoma Water, the Russian Project Authority, and all of the different groups so that the future remains bright for everybody on the Eel side and everybody on the Russian River side. And my last slide here is about the surrender process. Essentially, we're about in the middle of this process. This timeline before construction starts is uncertain. In theory, we could be in the construction phase in a couple of years, but it could also take a decade or more. The timeline is uncertain. All that we can do is work very hard every day, and I would encourage you to understand that so many people, Sonoma Water, our supervisors, Janet Pauley, who's here, have been working for, I think it's 9 years to make this a reality, because we all realize that water coming to the Russian River side and protecting wildlife on the eel side and water flowing there is of critical importance. I think when people first hear about this, they're shocked, as I was, but there's been a lot of people working very hard for almost a decade to make this a reality. And thank you very much.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm just going to stop the slides because I have no idea who's speaking on what slides.
And Ryan, before you move forward, I want to say this slide deck that you're going to see can get a little small. If you scan this QR code, you can follow along. It will take you to our page that has the videos and the slide decks from these presentations. Go ahead and click along with it so you can see all the small font.
Thank you, Ty. All right, next up we have David Manning. David has worked for the Sonoma County Water Agency for the past 26 years. I wanted to say longer than I've been alive, but I'm almost 50, so that wouldn't have been that funny of a joke. As Environmental Resources Division Manager, he is responsible for leading Sonoma Water's natural resources stewardship programs in the Russian River watershed and throughout the agency's service area. In 2025, David was appointed as the Executive Director of the Eel River Project Authority. That's cool. The new authority will design, construct, operate, and maintain a new Eel River facility to continue diverting water from the Eel River to the Russian River after the decommissioning of PG&E's Potter Valley project. Mr. Manning received his Bachelor of Science in Resource Management from the University of California, Berkeley, and a Master of Science in Natural Resources from Humboldt State University. Let's welcome to the stage David Manning.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that introduction, and Jason for introducing all of us to the Potter Valley Project. He mentioned something called the Two Basin Partnership, and that's where I'm going to start my presentation, because it's really the milestone that we just achieved with the organizations that you see up on the screen. And I know it's hard to see them, but this is a group of stakeholders, and I'll list them, that came together over this 9-year time horizon that was just mentioned to figure out how this diversion can continue after PG&E decommissions the Potter Valley project. And those partners, they represent interests both in the Russian and the Eel River, Sonoma Water, California Trout, Trout Unlimited, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, so the state of California is very engaged, the Round Valley Indian Tribes, the Mendocino County Inland Water and Power Commission, and you're going to hear directly from their chair, Janet Pauley, after we give our presentations here today, and the County of Humboldt. So the goals of this two-basin partnership, and it really did take a lot of work and collaboration over that period of time, are twofold. One, to improve fish habitat on the Eel River. I think most folks realize that in that long history, since 1908, the completion of Cape Horn Dam, the smaller dam downstream, and 1922, the completion of Scott Dam and Lake Pillsbury upstream, fish passage to the historic spawning grounds that salmon steelhead used in the Eel River watershed have been impeded, completely blocked by Scott Dam, and the access somewhat impeded by Cape Horn Dam. So after decommissioning of the dams and the removal, fish will be able to ascend into those historic spawning grounds. The other important need, of course, is to maintain this water diversion so that our economy can continue to flourish, support fisheries, water quality, all the uses of the Russian River Basin. We signed an agreement on July 28th, so only a couple of months ago, that does a couple of things, and I've listed them here on the screen, and the agreement itself, it's available publicly. You can read all the details, dozens of pages of legalese, but the main points of that water diversion agreement are to support PG&E's application to FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which they recently did at the end of July as well. And in that application is included a very technical term called a non-project use of project lands. Basically what it is PG&E asking permission for FERC to allow this new eel Russian facility that I'll describe to be constructed at the same time they're decommissioning their project. Very important that those two things be aligned. The other component are the rules that govern how the water can be diverted. And that's a little technical and complicated. I'll show you the results of those water diversion rules in the storage in Lake Mendocino, the amount of water we expect to be diverted, but there's detail in this agreement about the season of diversion, the quantities of water that can be diverted to protect Eel River resources, but also continue to supply water to the Russian River Basin. There are water rights transfers described in this water diversion agreement. The water rights will be leased back by the Eel Russian Project Authority from the Round Valley Indian tribes. There's a payment for that lease. There's also a payment from the Russian River interest, the Eel Russian Project Authority, to continue to restore and recover the Eel River to the tune of about $750,000 a year. The term of this agreement is 30 to 50 years. There are renewal requirements after that initial 30-year term to get to the full 50-year life of the agreement. And there's a potential that the agreement could continue beyond that point, but that is the most time that we can negotiate with our two basin partners to continue this diversion. So there's an expectation that over that lifetime of the project, there will be additional measures to enhance the resiliency of the Russian River water supply. David will speak to some of that, as will Janet. So the Eel Russian Project Authority, as Ryan mentioned, that I now represent, is a joint powers authority formed among Sonoma Water, Sonoma County, Mendocino County Inland Water Power Commission, and the Round Valley Indian Tribes as a member of our board of directors. We were formed to construct, to operate, to maintain the new Eel Russian facility, to continue this diversion. And I'll describe what that new Eel Russian facility looks like. Here are a couple of images. I'm sure you've probably seen pictures of Scott Dam and Lake Pillsbury, Cape Horn Dam and Benarsdale Reservoir downstream. Those Eel River dams really are connected in a very deep way to Coyote Valley Dam and Lake Mendocino. There's a mile-long tunnel that takes water from just above Cape Horn Dam and Benarsdale Reservoir to the east branch of the Russian River, where it flows through Potter Valley and then ends up in Lake Mendocino. Lake Mendocino, when it was constructed in the mid-1950s, was built with the understanding that that connection, that mile-long tunnel, and the amount of water flowing through it would be very durable over time. In fact, something Janet will talk about, the ultimate height of Coyote Valley Dam was authorized to be greater than it is right now, but wasn't deemed necessary because so much flow transfers from the Eel to the Russian River watershed. This image that you see here of Coyote Valley Dam and Lake Mendocino actually shows the lake in the depths of the drought that we experienced back in 2013 to 2015. The way the project, the Potter Valley project, PG&E's project, has operated over time, we've seen less reliability in Lake Mendocino. So this plot shows the average annual diversions since Scott Dam and Cape Horn Dam began diverting water into the Russian River. That amount of water, 150,000 acre feet, is substantial. That's a tremendous amount of water that flowed from the 1920s to 2005, generating hydroelectric power year-round. In the mid-2000s, because of environmental regulations to protect endangered fish on the Eel River side, those diversions were cut dramatically, from about 150,000 acre feet to less than half, 60,000 acre feet. In the more recent past, starting in 2021, there were some problems with the infrastructure, some of the power generating equipment at the Potter Valley project, as well as the effects of drought and the need to preserve water temperature on the Eel River side, the diversions have decreased even further. So we've been living now in the very recent past with about 40,000 acre-feet of water diverted through the project, and that has challenged the reliability of Lake Mendocino. So how can we preserve this critical diversion? In this image, we're looking at Cape Horn Dam. So this is that dam that's just at the location of the diversion tunnel. And in the image, I know it's hard to see in the back of the room. Upstream is on the left-hand side of the image, downstream on the right. Cape Horn Dam, the diversion tunnel entrance is just upstream in Van Arsdale Reservoir. That reservoir doesn't store much water. It's filled with sediment over time. It really exists to allow that water to flow via gravity between the Eel and the Russian River. The new Eel Russian facility, here's an artist rendering that's based on about a 20 or 30% level of design. So this is actually a fairly accurate representation of the way we're planning to divert water after PG&E removes Cape Horn Dam. You can see in this image that the spillway, that big center portion of the dam that blocks the river's flow, is completely removed. Instead of allowing water to flow via gravity between the Eel and the Russian River, we would construct a pump house that has screens that prevent fish from being entrained to lift the water about 30 or 40 feet into the tunnel entrance and then allow it to flow via gravity down into the Russian River side. The flow is controlled by some valves. On the powerhouse side, the Russian River side, the powerhouse will be offline, no longer used to generate hydroelectric energy, but we can have this water flow. At the same time, fish can ascend upstream to their historic spawning grounds and back downstream to the ocean, this site, without being affected by the presence of the dam. Here's another image, sort of a fish eyes perspective if you're swimming upstream. That structure on the right-hand side, that green building, is the pump house. There's a large retaining wall that protects a conduit that's carrying that water that's lifted those 30 or 40 feet up to the tunnel. So this is the same image I showed earlier, but on the far right-hand side, this last bar shows what we estimate through our hydrologic modeling. It's a pretty sophisticated model that takes into account how Lake Mendocino is operated, their flow requirements on the Eel River, how water is diverted from Lake Mendocino downstream to meet requirements in the Russian River watershed. So we have been living with about 40,000 acre feet on average. That's going to be less, about 30,000 acre feet on average when this project comes online. But the limitation there is not based on the requirements in this water diversion agreement to divert water from the Eel River. They're really based on our ability to store that water in Lake Mendocino. So Lake Mendocino, the way it is operated, and it's a little complicated, think about it as sort of a layer cake. The Army Corps of Engineers in the wintertime operates for flood control in the space that we'd like to occupy for water storage in the summertime. So this interplay between flood control and water supply limits the amount of water that can be stored in Lake Mendocino when it's available to be diverted from the Eel. There may be some projects coming in the future, and there have been some innovations of late that will allow more of that water to be stored and retained. But that's really the limitation. So with more storage, instead of 30,000 acre feet on average per year, perhaps 50,000 acre feet on average per year can be diverted and stored in Lake Mendocino. So turning that amount diverted into the amount that's actually stored in the reservoir, we're using that same measure, acre feet, but here we're looking at the storage in the reservoir at the end of the water year. So this is an important metric to know how well we'll be able to survive another water year without understanding what the hydrology can be. So how might we transition from one year into another if there's, for say, a drought? We look at the current operations, about 57,000 acre feet on average stored in Lake Mendocino. With the diversion, there's less water that we can store due to some of these limitations, but it's not dramatic, about 51,000 acre feet with no diversion at all. So if the Eel Russian Project Authority and this new Eel Russian facility did not come online, PG&E decommissioned the project, and ended those diversions, the average annual storage would be about 25,000 acre feet. That is a scant amount of water, and that's an average. So in some of those years representing that average, there is effectively no water that can be stored and released from Lake Mendocino. We would be in very critical sort of perpetual drought conditions. So the diversion is important to our reliability in the Russian River system. I really can't overstate that point enough, but it does come at a cost, this new eel Russian facility. And those costs, I'll outline here. They are preliminary. They're based on some of our early engineering work. There's going to be a lot more work in the next several years, as you'll see. I'll line out in our schedule to refine some of these estimates, but we're in the design and permitting phase right now. So we're moving from the 30 to the 60% design. That effort is costing about $5 million. The capital construction cost estimate for the NERF, as we call it, is $50 million. And then operations and maintenance, which really includes everything from the cost to finance the project, to contingencies, to those water rights lease and restoration payments, is in a range of about $7 to $12 million. And that range depends on how much public money we can generate to offset the cost of carrying bonds for that $50 million capital. So the revenue sources can be a combination of grants, bonds, water user payments, and we're in the mode now of trying to figure out what that revenue stream will look like to operate this project longer term. We have been doing fairly well, actually, of late in the grant department. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife has promised, and we are in the process right now of writing an agreement with them for $9 million to support the new eel Russian facility. The state, through another proposition, Proposition 4, is also looking at $5.5 million to come the way of the project. The federal government, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, has given $2 million toward this design process. So we are generating some interest in the sustainability of this water diversion from the state and the federal government. We have a long way to go. And I will touch on that pathway really quick here in the schedule before I show you how to find some more resources about this project and then turn it over to Supervisor Rabbit. So as I mentioned, PG&E filed its license surrender application at the end of July. The parties signed this water diversion agreement also at the end of July. So between 2025 and 2028, and this is maybe a little more detailed than Jason provided in the schedule, we don't hold PG&E's belief that by 2028 construction will start, because there are a lot of steps involved for the Eel Russian Project Authority and PG&E over the next several years, and that involves a lot of environmental compliance, NEPA compliance, CEQA compliance, development of additional engineering plans, of management plans that PG&E has developed for its decommissioning. There are parallel tracks, one for the new Eel Russian facility and its environmental compliance, and a separate track for PG&E and its compliance for the surrender and the decommissioning process. We think it's possible that between 2028 and 2030, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission might issue a surrender order for the project. After that order is posted, there are usually additional steps for the entities to undertake before it can be enacted. And that leads to an uncertain construction and decommissioning timeframe. We've given a 5-year window, perhaps between 2030 and 2035, before shovels would hit the ground to remove the project facilities from PG&E and build the new Eel Russian facility. That is the best guess that we can give at this point. We'll refine this over time. If you would like to know more information about this project and how we got here, there is a website that we've set up for the Eel Russian Project Authority, eelrussianauthority.org. On there you can find some basic fact sheets about the project. You can share with your business partners, with stakeholders, constituents. We've also brought copies of those. They're at the entrance near the buffet table. And we're available to give presentations like this, answer questions. The project is pretty complicated, we understand that. It's gonna take a while for folks to understand how it will function and meet the needs of the Russian River watershed, but we're confident that we can build this and sustain the water resources that are so vital for our region. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan and Supervisor Rabbit.
Thank you, David. All right, I have the the honor of introducing somebody that I voted for back when I lived in Petaluma 16 years ago. Supervisor David Rabbit was elected to his 4th term representing the District of Sonoma County in June of 2022. He was first elected to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors back in November of 2010, after serving 4 years on the Petaluma City Council. The supervisor has served as chair of the Board of Supervisors 4 times, 2 consecutive terms in 2013 and 14, as well as 2019, and recently 2024. Supervisor Rabbit serves on several local, regional, and state boards. Currently, along with his local governmental committees, Supervisor Rabbit serves as immediate past president of the Association of Bay Area Governments, director on the Golden Gate Bridge District, which I hear about from time to time, director on the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit, Friends of Smart are here, North Bay Water Resource Authority, and director on the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and Regional Climate Protection Authority. There's still more, guys. There's still lots more. Director on the Petaluma and Sonoma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agencies, board member of the Santa Rosa Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, and has been appointed 3 terms by the governor to represent local government, and is the current chair of the California Alfred E. Alquist Seismic Safety Commission. I don't know about you, but when you have somebody that serves your city and serves your county, you want to know that they've got their finger in lots of places, and Supervisor Rabbit's definitely in lots of places. Supervisor Rabbit is an architect, having earned his architectural degree at the University of Oregon. He lives in Petaluma with his wife, Jane, who is a nurse at UCSF, and he has 3 adult children. Let's welcome David Rabbit to the stage. Hey, I love my speaker pictures, and he has to leave early.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate that. And good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about a really important, I think, generational issue that we're grappling with, not just countywide, but really our neighboring counties as well, in the entire North Bay, North Coast region. I'm trying to make sure I move down here. Again, I want to thank you. So my role this morning is to really kind of give you an overview of the comprehensive regional water supply approach and how the new Eel Russian facility is part of that regional strategy. There's been a lot of talk about this particular project. It's important, obviously, always has been. Janet and I smiled at each other when I think Ryan mentioned we started this 9 years ago, because I remember with 2011, myself and then brand new supervisor Mike McGuire took a tour that Janet graciously offered us of the whole Eel watershed. It was a 2-day tour along the entire stretch, and of course it was talking about then the importance of the Potter Valley project, the future, the uncertain future that we knew then about what would happen, how it was integral to this county, but also into Mendocino County. So we were in a place that, looking back then, I think we're in as good a place as we can be at this particular point in time. And again, there's a lot of, water is always complicated, and certainly in the West, right? There's that old quote that whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting. I think in the West, in our climate, it is always an issue. So make no mistake that the diversion from the Eel to the Russian is vital, but it is one piece of a complicated puzzle that sometimes with seemingly conflicting purposes that we all have to manage in order to supply water to our 600,000 customers here. And so, like I said, it's one piece, a vital piece, but not the only piece needed. And we have been building a broader toolkit to address water supply variability, to address drought, to address climate extremes. And one of my things I love to talk about is, and I think it's really indicative of Sonoma Water really being at the forefront of water management, is something called FERO. And I hope that, for some of you, you've probably already heard this spiel, but if you haven't, I think it's really worth noting, because I think it's really groundbreaking, and it goes hand in hand with what Potter Valley, David mentioned, the lower amount of water that will be coming through the diversion. The diversion is vitally important. And as you saw, we can't do without it. We understand it's not going to be what it once was. It certainly hasn't been for the last so many years, but we can't do without it. And so what do we do to augment that? Well, one of the things that we're doing to augment that is called FIRO, which is an acronym, Forecast Informed Reservoir Operation. And I like to tell the story this way. David mentioned the years of drought that we've had. It seems like we either have consecutive droughts or consecutive flood years, one or the other, nothing in between. But in 2014, and again, I will say this, God bless the Army Corps of Engineers. We co-managed those two dams, right, Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino, with the Army Corps of Engineers. They're responsible for flood control. That's their main emphasis on that management, and we're responsible for water supply. And if you're responsible for flood control, what do? I would say don't leave a lot of water behind the dam. Make sure that you have a lot of space when those big storms, and we do have big storms here in the North Bay with heavy precipitation, that all those tributaries that are flowing into the reservoir have a safe place to enter and be stored. And so what happens is that the Army Corps, Coyote Dam was built, or the rule book goes back to 1954, and it's literally a rule book that has dates on the graph. It has, if the water level is at this level on this particular date and a storm is coming, you release so many thousand acre feet down to this level to allow for that flood control pool to be filled again. That's great when the water actually hits your watershed. Not so good when it misses it entirely and you've released 30,000 acre feet. That happened in 2014. That led to, you all remember, Governor Newsom standing on the cracked lake bed of Lake Mendocino during the middle of our 3-year drought, pointing to the water issues. That really came about because of the lack, not the Army Corps' problem per se, but that atmospheric river did not hit the watershed. In fact, I think that year it actually hit Marin, filled up all their reservoirs, and they were golden. And that's what happens with the weather in the West Coast. I tease my daughter who lives in Washington, D.C., and some of you know this, right? They have the weather gang with the, I think with the Washington Post. And they could say, it's gonna rain today at 2:15. And you walk outside and it pretty much rains at 2:15. Because they have the European model, they have a Canadian model, they have the East Coast model, the weather comes across the US, they know it's coming, they can predict it much better. We have a massive Pacific Ocean where we can't really say, who knew it was gonna rain the other day? What weather forecaster ever says definitively? It's always a percentage, it might rain this morning, can't really tell you what time. And that's what, if you're managing water, it's really important to know. And the atmospheric rivers, those tails that come across these storms, are very narrow bands, heavy precipitation. And again, if it hits your watershed and fills your reservoir, no problem. But if it hits on the other side of that watershed and leaves no water in your reservoir, that's a problem. And so the Water Agency turned to itself and said, what can we do about that? Why are we following a rule book from 1954 in this day and age with all the technology that we have available to us? And we partnered with the Scripps Institute of Oceanography down in UC San Diego and NOAA, and really started to look at how can we better predict these weather patterns, these atmospheric rivers. In fact, I would like to think that I think Sonoma Water had a lot of emphasis in terms of really calling these storms. They used to call them pineapple expresses, but we kind of coined the atmospheric river and it's stuck. And it's really this work, this weather forecasting, the predictability, getting better at it, and knowing where the water is going to fall so that you could really manage those reservoirs better has been just huge. On Lake Mendocino, we have a signing ceremony coming up, I think on October 22nd with the Army Corps. It took a couple of years to do a pilot project to convince the Army Corps that it was safe to actually have not just a water supply pool, a flood control pool. Now we have something called a FIRO pool. And that FIRO pool at Lake Mendo is plus or minus 10,000 acre feet. So when Dave talks about, going from 40,000 acre feet down to 10, you add that, or 40,000 down to 30, you add that 10 back, you're back at 40. We have right now a deviation at Lake Sonoma, much the same in terms of the FIRO pool. Lake Sonoma is 3 times as big as Lake Mendo, maybe a little more. That is going to be in my mind, ground changing going forward. And the good thing that we do in terms of, I believe, the smart thing is to, if you have a good idea, share it, especially when you're looking for money from the federal government. Find other allies that are going to be with you. So in the West Coast, we found through the Army Corps, they manage over 700 reservoirs. Maybe half of them really can have a FERO pool or approach implemented on them. But if you think about it, for all the talk and all the money and the lawsuits inevitably that will happen for like a sites reservoir, if you can get 10% better water supply out of 300 reservoirs that exist today, you've built 30 reservoirs. And it was a lot cheaper than going through and finding that land and doing everything else. So I think there's ways to really do better water management, and I'm really proud of that particular aspect. There's something else, and love acronyms. There's AQPI, which is Advanced Quantitative Precipitation Information. It's changing the weather radars to actually help the forecasters, again, do a better job about where these atmospheric rivers are going to dump. And I like to, again, the politician always likes these stories. If you watch the channel, I watch Channel 2 News at night. They got the Doppler radar. As I understand it, the Doppler radar is not that good. Maybe that's why they can't predict as well with the topography, the mountainous areas that we have. But it's really X-band, C-band radar that we've been installing through, I think, a $35 million grant that we've gotten. So AQPI is part of FERO, and it's, I think we're 4 new radar throughout the Bay Area. So once again, Sonoma Water is kind of leading the way in terms of this management, really making sure that we use the best technology available, the best tools available. The Army Corps now is all on board, and they're looking for other areas throughout the West Coast. I think the only limiting piece right now is how many days in advance can you predict with a greater certainty where that water will fall, so that you're not too far out. Like, you can't do this in Texas, where a block of water might take 8 days to get to the Gulf of Mexico. But you could do it in California, where a block of water might take 2, 3, or maybe even 4. So there's opportunities all on the West Coast that the Army Corps now is taking advantage of. And I think that's really a smart and great move forward. I'm really proud of that particular program, because I think that's also game changing. But that goes, again, to how we really augment the impact of Potter Valley. And I think that, again, is so important. The other thing I wanted to really touch on, storage. And I think Janet will touch on storage as well. One of the things that we're looking at, we have a couple different pilot programs on. Some of you know this well. The ASR, which is called Aquifer Storage and Recovery, banking groundwater. Now that we have in California, and I'm chair of the Petaluma Valley GSA, we have the Santa Rosa Plain GSA, and we have the Sonoma Valley GSA. We have opportunities to really understand better what's happening beneath our feet, and those opportunities within the county of where we could actually store water and pull it up later. It's a lot easier and cheaper, again, to put that water in areas that you can get to in those drier years, or even seasonally, to be able to pull it up in the drier summer months. So those are a few things that the Water Agency has been working on. You can see the roadmap. And the one thing I want to leave with you, just like FERO, water's been around forever. Managing water at one time was probably a lot easier. Well, I know it was a lot easier. There's a lot of conflicting pieces. Sonoma County has always done right by the environment in terms of, you know this from your history, right by the environment in terms of the biological opinion that's on the Russian River, the improvements to the fisheries. In fact, we all know if the fish are healthy, the water is going to be healthy, and that's going to be a good thing for all of us, including those that are going to be drinking that water. And I think it all goes hand in hand, but it's always a moving, in advancing in different ways to make sure that we can continue to provide that water safely to 600,000 people. There's really only one water. I'm also chair of the North Bay Water Reuse Authority. That really is more in the South County, because obviously the water up in Santa Rosa will be mostly going to the geysers. But in the South County, it's really about using every drop of water twice. Why is that important? Obviously, it's precious, we all know that, but it also takes pressure off the whole Russian River system. And every chance we get to take pressure off the system, it's going to make it us more resilient going forward and battle through these, cycles of drought and water abundance. We have more than enough water each and every year, even the drought years in the winter months. We have more than enough water in the county. We just need to get it to a place that can be stored and be used again going forward. ASR is some of that approach. I think there's a lot more that we can do. There will be a lot more that we can do. I will salute everyone for great conservation efforts within this county. You all remember, not that long ago, our water right was much higher than what we've been using, and it's been diminishing over the years, even as population growth has occurred. And that again goes to the good work that everyone has been doing. So with that, I got to get to jury duty before the judge sends out a warrant for me. But I do have a couple minutes, and I think we're going to go to Q&A.
All right, I'll pass the mic. We probably have 2 questions we could get before he has to leave. Anyone have questions? Wow. It's the quietest I've ever seen this group. All right, get to jury duty.
Off to jury duty. Wish me luck.
All right, let's bring up our final speaker of the day, and then we're going to have all 3 of them come up to the stage, and we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. So just in case you have a question while Janet is speaking, think about it, write it down, and keep it in the queue so that we can have some good questions for them at the end, if we have any. All right, so I'd like to introduce Janet Pauley, who is the Director and President of the Potter Valley Irrigation District. She's the chair of the Mendocino County Inland Water and Power Commission, a joint powers authority whose member agencies include the County of Mendocino Water Agency, City of Ukiah, Mendocino County Russian River Flood Control, and Water Conservation Improvement District, Redwood Valley County Water District, and the Potter Valley Irrigation District. The commission was formed in 1996 to protect our local water supply with the Russian River watershed. Janet is a member of the Mendocino County Farm Bureau Water Committee and sits on the Public Policy Facilitating Committee for the Biological Opinion regarding operations of Coyote and Warm Springs dams. Recently, she was appointed by the commission to be a director on the newly formed Eel River Project Authority. Janet received her PhD in zoology from the University of Hawaii after completing marine ecosystem research in the Hawaiian and Marshall Islands and graduate work at the University of Washington in Seattle. She and her husband Bill, along with their 5 adult children, that's a lot of kids, own and operate Polly Ranch, farming Bartlett and Bosque, pears, and wine grapes. Let's welcome Janet to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. And those 5 children have produced 12 grandchildren at this point in time. Who would have guessed that could happen? Thank you all very much for inviting me again to speak to you.
I'm going to talk a little bit.
Wait, now. Oh, the light came on. So I'd like to start a little bit where both Davids have left off. David Manning described NERF and the project and where we are with the Potter Valley decommissioning process. It's been complicated. It's been taking a long time. I've been involved with issues regarding this project since 1988. And the story that needs to be told has changed a lot in that period of time. There's an urgency now that we didn't have before. And it's requiring us to change the way we think about things and the way we do things. And it's not just actually because of the Potter Valley project that we're concerned, but it's also because of the pictures that you see up here right now. In 1977, there was a serious drought. Some people here would remember it. In 2014, another one where Lake Mendocino looked about like this. And as recent as 2021, we saw this picture again. So clear back in 2005, I was chairing the Inland Water and Power Commission, and we started to work with the Army Corps of Engineers back then to begin a feasibility study to look at raising Coyote Valley Dam as one part of a local resiliency project that we needed to have in place. At that point in time, we weren't even considering the fact the Pacific Gas and Electric Company might decommission this project. We were concerned about just natural drought. And this is what we were facing based just on natural drought, not on a loss of that water supply from the Potter Valley project. So David Manning has talked about NERF, he's talked about ERPA, and those processes are underway and they're critically important. The NERF project in particular, the new Eel Russian facility, I don't know why we call it NERF, but that's obviously what it is now. It's critically important, and it has been a major project that we have accomplished that I think for a long time we hadn't even considered needing, and now obviously we do. And we've come to that place with PG&E's cooperation and working with us to include that in the new license, the surrender plan. So we're going to have a facility that will continue to be able to divert water from the Eel River, which is so critically important, as David Manning mentioned regarding our water supply. And then again, as Supervisor Rabbit described, managing Lake Mendocino, and while we are doing that differently now with FERO, we could improve the resiliency of that structure by raising that dam. It was authorized by Congress in the 50s. The original authorization was to raise the dam by 36 vertical feet. That would actually double its gross capacity. So while that may not be what ultimately happens, that's the path we're on. Besides that project, I just want to really quickly mention that there are other projects underway, other investigations that are underway, not projects yet. We hope they'll lead to projects. One of which is to find more storage in Potter Valley. The community of Potter Valley is upstream of Lake Mendocino. It is completely dependent on the diversion of this water from the Eel River. So finding more storage beyond the farm ponds that we already have in Potter Valley is critically important. With the help of Sonoma Water, we have used some grant funding from the Department of Water Resources to look at the possibility of groundwater storage and maybe even surface water storage projects for Potter Valley. Going back now to Lake Mendocino, where that diverted water is restored and is used by everyone here, everyone in the entire Russian River watershed downstream of Lake Mendocino. Working with the Army Corps of Engineers again, we're starting to find what it's going to take to actually get to a place where we might realize raising Coyote Valley Dam as was originally suggested. Right now, we have started a new feasibility study with the Corps. The Inland Water and Power Commission is a non-federal sponsor with the Corps. And this time around, we have a partner in the Lytton Rancheria. They've joined us also as a non-federal sponsor, which is very exciting, and they're very engaged, and we're having very good conversations. This whole process with a new feasibility study was initiated in March. We had a site visit last month. The team with the Army Corps is very engaged, very enthusiastic. We're identifying some some problems and opportunities. We received a $500,000 grant to initiate this study. A non-federal sponsor means not only are you working with the Army Corps of Engineers about the possibilities moving forward, but also you are required to match federal funding that's acquired on a 50-50 match. So obviously this is not going to be a simple project. If you look at this, and I'm not going to go through this slide, you'll see the process that's involved, the years that it takes to get from the beginning of where we are now to the end with a realization of an increased storage capacity. And it might not be raising the dam. It might be more ways to reoperate Lake Mendocino. Those are some of the investigations that we're just on the very, very beginning of. So we, as non-federal sponsors, are advocating strongly for additional funding. Every year we will be going through this. First of all is getting the federal funding and then matching it. So stay tuned. This is not going to be simple, and it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be cheap. But it's a path I think we need to take. Whether or not we were concerned about the future of the Potter Valley project, or whether we're simply concerned about natural drought. We need to have a way to be more resilient. Just really quickly, the next slide actually is similar, but these are the steps that need to be taken just in the feasibility phase of this process. So we're talking about several months. We're in the very beginning and scoping and alternatives. We're just moving into that phase. Alternative evaluation and analysis can take up to 21 months, and then another 21 months maybe to select a plan, etc. Every one of these phases is going to be requiring funding, which we don't have at this point in time. So once the funding is identified for this next phase, we'll be using it for scoping, for NEPA and CEQA analyses, and then we're going to be formulating measures and alternatives. So, are there other alternatives? Well, we're gonna find out. But for right now, simply saying raising Coyote Valley Dam is the answer to all of our problems is not accurate. We're going to be looking at several other alternatives as well. So, in my mind, and I only had a few minutes to really talk. I think any one of us today who spoke to you could talk for hours about this project. And I look forward to talking to any of you that have questions moving forward. This process has been going on for a very, very long time. It's going to continue for a very, very long time. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to be proactive, try and work together as best we can to take advantage of situations that sometimes are not under our control. But I'm sure that we can figure out a way to find resilience in the process and in what kinds of projects we need to realize to protect this water supply. I mean, obviously all of you are aware of how critically important it is. Again, it's not going to happen by itself. It's going to take all of us to get it done. So I think we're at a point where we're going to answer some questions from the audience, and thank you.
Yeah, so I want to invite both speakers back up to the stage, Jason and David, and we will open the mic here. All right, we got a question in the back. Let me get my steps in today.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
we're
cruising.
Thank you. Thank you guys. That was all very interesting and informative. I work at Santa Rosa Junior College, so I'm always looking at how to position our students to take advantage of future jobs. And it sounds like these are going to be very big projects that will theoretically bring a lot of jobs into this area. I'm curious what the timeline is, your guesstimate for when people will start to be hired, what types of jobs that looks like, and any advice on how to position our youth and young adults to take advantage of that.
Maybe I can start with that, and then I'll hand it over to Jason. So as you saw on the slide, we're really in a sort of planning and engineering design, environmental compliance phase of the project right now. To do that work, we hire consultants. Those consultants, I know the team that we are hiring to do environmental compliance, environmental science associates, and the subcontractors working with them represent 25, 30 professionals that will be helping us step through the environmental compliance process for the new Eel Russian facility. It's probably very similar on PG&E's side for the decommissioning. The operations part of the new Eel Russian facility, staffing for that, we're not going to hire a whole bunch of people, sort of fresh off of the street. We may wind up using resources of some of the member agencies potentially to provide some of those technical support services, and that's what's happening now. So, I work for Sonoma Water, but a lot of my time is dedicated to this JPA, and the engineers that I work with, the legal counsel that I work with, similar. So those opportunities exist within the member organizations, probably more than they will independently for the Eel Russian Project Authority. The construction pieces will bring quite a few resources to the region to decommission the project, and maybe I'll let Jason speak to that.
Thank you for that question. So we just released in our last general rate case an estimate of how much money we would spend for decommissioning, which almost all of that is from a construction standpoint, and that was $532 million. I think you could probably put $1 billion price tag on that. The North Coast Builders Exchange is here. $1 billion in jobs. So I don't really have a background to say how do we get Sonoma State and Santa Rosa Junior College and other local people into those jobs. But as part of the mix, a project like this brings in a lot of money.
All right, we have one question over here, and then we have one submitted that I'll read out.
This would be a question for PG&E, I think. One of the roles that a dam plays is attenuating flood flows and downstream. And has your analysis considered what the impacts will be on the Eel River downstream of the Cape Horn Dam, even an Eel River that may still be choked with some of the sediment coming out of Lake Pillsbury?
I am going to pass the microphone because the hydrology side of things is not my area of expertise.
So that analysis will be part of the environmental compliance piece that PG&E has to complete. So the regional and the state water quality control board will require that there be evaluations of the impacts of flow and sediment downstream when they do their California Environmental Quality Act and National Environmental Policy Act assessments. The modeling, there is modeling that will be done. There's some partial modeling that has already been done to look at the impacts to communities from sediment moving downstream. The flood considerations, I imagine, will be covered as well. So there's the flood control, though, is not a primary purpose of those project dams. They really are created for generating hydropower and storing that water to release it year-round so that those turbines can spin on the Russian River side of PG&E's project. There's undoubtedly a flood control component, but that was not the purpose of the construction of Scott and Bernard's Dam.
I will say that Scott Dam is very high in the watershed of the Eel River, and only impounds a tiny bit of the flow of the entire Eel River. So if you're down in Fortuna on a very wet winter, the contribution to what's happening in Fortuna is very, very small from what is being stored behind in Lake Pillsbury. In fact, on a good water year, Lake Pillsbury will fill and spill 9 times its volume. So its flood control value to downstream communities is pretty small. But that being said, PG&E is going to be required to do a series of studies regarding not only flood, but what happens with that sediment that's currently behind that dam. So, stand by.
Janet, I want to thank you for the work you've been doing for many, many years on this. The question I have, and you spent a fair amount of time on it, is storage seems to be one of the biggest answers to the problem of the water shortages. So Coyote Valley Dam, Lake Mendocino seems to be the obvious answer for many years. What are the biggest impediments to getting that done? I mean, you mentioned time and money, but is there something else at worse that's keeping that from moving forward?
Well, thank you for the question. Time and money, obviously, that's not minor. And whether or not it actually ends up being raising the dam or more reoperation or other projects, the Army Corps is going to require us to look at alternatives to raising Coyote Valley Dam. If raising Coyote Valley Dam 36 vertical feet doubles its gross capacity, that's a significant amount of water. If we were going to look for another project, which will be required under this process, it's hard to imagine that we could find another project, at least in that part of the watershed, that could store over 100,000 acre feet, because that's what doubling the capacity would actually end up being. It's going to, we're not just going to have to look at Mendocino County section of the Russian River either. We're going to have to be looking at the entire Russian River and considering it as one unit. Mike Thompson and I were talking about this earlier this morning. People want to try and divide this watershed at county lines. It makes no sense in today's world to do that. Today we have to look at this watershed as a whole, and we need to operate it as a whole system. So raising Coyote Valley Dam or increasing storage somehow in that reservoir is one thing. Building other storage, obviously I mentioned Potter Valley, the community of Potter Valley is upstream of Lake Mendocino. It won't benefit from raising Coyote Valley Dam or more storage in Coyote Valley Dam. We need storage there as well, maybe in Redwood Valley and other watersheds. People have talked about Hensley Creek. Come all the way down the watershed. Are there places in the watershed where we can store water that doesn't impact anadromous fish, for example? Those are all parts of this work that's going to have to be done moving forward.
I'm curious about the stakeholders. The two-basin plan I saw had Humboldt County, but it's not in the authority. And then Lake County has been absent through all this, even though Lake Pillsbury is there. Can you just speak at that a little bit?
Yeah, so in terms of the authority, it's really the Russian River interests that are in that authority. The Grand Valley Indian Tribes sits on the board of directors, but of course they will hold the water rights that needs to be leased in order for the diversion to occur. They're also very interested in those diversion rules being adhered to. But the authority piece is really about governing that flow and then figuring out how to support that continued diversion here in the Russian River watershed, the financial support for it. So that is something that divides the watersheds, but the diversion agreement itself, those stakeholders, they were representative of the interests in those watersheds. They weren't the only interested parties, but they brought with them the concerns of other stakeholders. Lake County is an exception to that. The fact that Lake County was not included has history that dates back to the formation of an ad hoc committee by Congressman Huffman that considered some of the options for coping with the eventual decommissioning of the dam. And Lake County was not invited to sit in those early meetings. They didn't become a member of the two-basin solution, but I think their concerns have been brought to the attention of PG&E, and PG&E, maybe I'll pass it over to Jason, and talk about their ongoing work with Lake County to address those long-term concerns.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I cover Lake County and Sonoma County. The concerns of Lake County, I think they really have to be met in the same way that the concerns of all of the parties that have been participating in the Eel Russian Project Authority need to be met. I think that they would have expressed to you today, and they've expressed to me, that they don't feel that their concerns have been fully met yet, and that there needs to be more work on that side. I think that's an important part of our democracy. If you have groups of people that feel disenfranchised in the process, it's harder to make this whole thing go. And so we are working, not as fast as they would like, towards just an equitable solution that takes their concerns into consideration.
All right. Please keep your seats, speakers. And can we give them a round of applause and thank you guys again for coming. All right. I'm going to tie this meeting up with a pretty bow and get you out of here at 9 a.m., Janet, as promised. Okay, first of all, those QR codes, guys, scan them. If you're not a member, we would love to have you join our organization and help be part of the family, moving business advocacy forward in the county. Secondly, please consider buying your ticket to our November 6th event. Your fear of loss should be huge. Your fear of missing out should be big. It's going to be a great party. It's going to be a celebration. It's going to be a nice dinner, an awards ceremony. We're even going to auction off an old sign that dates many, many years ago. That will be a lot of fun. So don't miss out there. I want to thank our elected officials that were in the room. We have our mayor that comes every month. Mayor Stapp, thank you for being here and being part of our family. We had county supervisors, school superintendent Amy was here. We had congressman reps that were present, thank you. Council members that were here. My city manager, thank you for coming. We value you. We appreciate your hard work. We recognize you're serving us and our cities. So thank you for being here and giving us your voices and your time. With that, our October 1st meeting is going to be for SMART. And I thought it would be kind of nice to read a little blurb about what it is, because I don't know what the term or acronym mascots meant. So we as an organization have a transportation committee that cares deeply about the transportation in Sonoma County and in our cities. SMART, our Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit System, cares deeply about getting people around our county and connecting local counties and nearby counties. So the Marin Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service Plan, is that a mouthful or what? The Marin Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service Plan, mascots, is a collaborative project between MTC and 9 transit and funding agencies to create a more connected, frequent transit network. Mascots is focused on making travel more efficient between Sonoma and Marin counties, as well as to and from San Francisco. Transit riders can expect shorter travel times and cost savings thanks to frequent bus and smart rail services. You guys, we have invested a lot in that transit system, and we want to know what it's capable of. We want to know what the challenges are. We want to know where we're winning and losing and what we're going to be doing about it. That is what October 1st's membership meeting is about. Us being an informed community is what will help us build the community that we want. So I hope to see you guys on October 1st, and thanks for coming, guys.